All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the History of Life. This is part 2. Last time we talked about how the first organisms, the first cells were born, and how those bacteria gave rise to more bacteria through asexual reproduction. And we addressed a really important question. If asexual reproduction of those bacteria made all of the same genetically identical bacteria, then why is there diversity of life on Earth today? Well, it all started when one of these bacteria one day became different from the rest. And that happened in its genetics. So it had some DNA, and that DNA made RNA, and that RNA made a protein. And this is the way it always was. The protein had some kind of function in the cell, and that made the cell do its job. But then there was a mutation, a change in DNA that changed the RNA, that completely changed the structure of the protein. It might have changed just one amino acid. It might have changed all the amino acids, but it completely changed the structure of the protein, which means the cell was completely different. And so all of a sudden, you had a new cell that was born that was completely different from the rest of the cells. Now, you can imagine that when those cells changed, the proteins that changed inside them caused the entire cells to look differently from each other. And there were two main groups of cells that evolved at this point in time. And again, this is still way early on. This is still billions of years ago. There was still the crazy volcanoes. There was still the toxic gas. This is all still happening in the ocean. But the main change that happened was the change in the structure of the cells. And that's because the proteins had changed their structures. So you had two kinds of cells. First was called the eubacteria. Eu means true. It's like the true bacteria. This is the kind of bacteria that you see today in your guts or in undercooked meat or in vegetables. And then there's also the archaebacteria. The archaebacteria were weird back then, and they're weird today. They live in really, really crazy environments. They live in hot springs, where it's like over 100 degrees Fahrenheit as the temperature. They live in water so salty that no other kind of life lives. They live in extreme cold. They live in extreme heats. They live in extreme acidity. They're really amazing creatures, and because they love the extreme environments, they're called extremophiles. Phile means love, and they file that extreme environment so much. Now, these cells continue to acquire mutations, and they continue to become different from each other. And some of the bacteria were really good at doing photosynthesis. They were able to take in energy coming from the sun, absorb that light energy through the molecule called chlorophyll, and make the essential food molecule that's essential to all life on Earth today, and that is glucose. So they're able to make glucose through the process of photosynthesis. There were other bacteria that were able to take in that glucose and do a process of cellular respiration to make ATP. Now, these bacteria both played critical functions in the early Earth. There was lots of glucose being made through photosynthesis, and there was lots of ATP being made from cellular respiration. But they were happening largely through different kinds of bacteria. Now, one day, one of these cells got hungry, and it found one of these photosynthetic bacterial cells and decided to eat it. And yes, cells actually can eat things through a process called endocytosis, where they literally take in their membrane, they invaginate their membrane, they bring it in, and they absorb another cell. This happened, and normally when this happens, the cell or bacterium or any piece of debris that's floating around normally gets digested and turned into energy. But before this little photosynthetic bacterium could get digested, it made a deal to the cell. It said to the cell, hey, I'm a photosynthetic bacterium. I can make lots of glucose for you. You keep me around, and I'll make you lots of glucose. And this is exactly what happened. How do we know this, though? We weren't around. We didn't see it happening. But we can think about it. We can infer it as scientists. We can think to ourselves, if this is true, then we should probably see two membranes around the cell. Well, you have a bacterial cell membrane, and then you have the membrane from when the cell did endocytosis, when the host cell did endocytosis and invaginated it in. Also, you should see bacteria you should see DNA in these organelles that you see today. And indeed, we do see DNA. We also see ribosomes in these. And this photosynthetic bacterium that got absorbed is the chloroplast. It is the thing in plant cells and in algae cells that actually does photosynthesis. So this is around today. And today we also have mitochondria that do cellular respiration, that make ATP, that also have two membranes, that also have ribosomes inside, that also have DNA inside. And the reason why they came around was because a cell took them in and it used them, instead of digesting them, it kept them around to start making lots of ATP through cellular respiration from the mitochondria, or lots of glucose through photosynthesis from the chloroplast. The first eukaryotic cell. Eu means new, and this was a new cell, different from all the other cells in history, and it would change the world forever. In fact, this cell would give rise to all multicellular organisms on Earth. What I mean by that are any organisms on Earth that are made of more than one cells. Yes, humans, obviously. Yes, plants. Yes, mushrooms and other fungi. Yes, animals of all varieties, fish, mammals, insects, sponges. Yes, sponge is an animal. Jellyfish, all kinds of different animals. We're all eukaryotic organisms, and we all came from this original cell that was able to keep around bacteria inside it as chloroplast and as mitochondria. Today, this eukaryotic cell has all kinds of different organelles, or little compartments made of membranes that it took in through the process of endocytosis. This includes the nucleus, which is a membrane around DNA. This includes the endoplasmic reticulum, which makes more membranes, the Golgi body, which enhances the membranes. It adds special modifications to the membranes, the lysosome, and all kinds of other organelles. These are all little compartments inside the eukaryotic cell that help it do its job better. And because of that, eukaryotic cells are much bigger than prokaryotic cells, and most importantly, they're now able to make multicellular organisms. And that was the birth of all life on Earth today. We have animals, plants, fungi, including mushrooms, and protists, including amoeba or single-celled organisms, the kind you find in ponds. And these are all part of a group. Remember, eu means new. These are the eukaryotic organisms, the eukaryotes. The other groups, the bacteria, those are called prokaryotes. Pro means before. So they were around before everything else. The prokaryotes came first. The eukaryotes, or the new karyotes, they came second. Again, they include protists, plants, fungi, and animals. And yes, if you're wondering if this diagram is correct, it is correct. We are more closely related to a mushroom than we are to a tree. Weird. Soon and next time, we're going to talk about how all these organisms interact with each other. Thanks for listening.